welcome to another episode of Where Spirit Meets Science. I'm Dr. Bill, and today's topic is titled The Inquisitive Path and Seeking the Hidden Mysteries of the Universe. This is another excerpt from my upcoming book, Spiritual Inheritance, Merging Generations of Divine Wisdom. And if you've seen earlier episodes where I've talked about this, spiritual inheritance is the merging the divine wisdom from my grandfather, the late Reverend A.B. Lauenborg, and my own spiritual journey and merging that. What's fascinating to me and always has been is that what my grandfather wrote about so many years ago, back in the 40s through the early 70s, and then my own spiritual journey decades later, that we often find that spiritual wisdom is timeless. And I find it's always fascinating to blend this. So that's the purpose of this book, is kind of blending that. So I have a unique opportunity where I inherited all my grandfather's sermons years ago and started reading all those. I still haven't even read them all. There's quite a few. But there's so much knowledge there and wisdom from decades of experience and spiritual journeys, both collectively with my grandfather and myself. So today's message centers around a particular quote from the Bible or scripture that says, quote, "Ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you." And that's from St. Matthew 7:7. Now, you've probably heard that one before. It's I'd say one of the more popular, famous quotes from the Bible anyway. And it sets the tone for our episode today, because it's talking about understanding that seeking knowledge and spiritual insight is a lifelong journey. It takes a long time to do that. Now, as a scientist, I'm obviously very curious. That's the whole premise of this podcast and my books, is about where spirit meets science. It's been my journey as a scientist, being curious and being inquisitive and exploring everything that unfolds before me in my spiritual path. And blending this science and asking questions, because any good scientist goes through and asks questions and says, okay, if that's true, then that's that. So if you think about inquisitiveness in general, I used to think that before I got my PhD in chemistry, prior to that, my thinking was, oh, well, it's very black and white, because this is the way our media portrays it in terms of knowledge and understanding how the ways of the universe work and discoveries and all of that. But what I discovered during my journey and 5 years doing that was that it wasn't black and white, it was very gray. And every time you asked a new question or you opened up another part of a question, your sphere of knowledge was like this, it would begin to expand. And then on the surface arose more questions. So you're constantly in a state of inquisitiveness when you're journeying through to maybe make scientific discoveries. It leads you here and there, but it's also true for your spiritual path. It's the same thing. So as you learn more and as you grow, this sphere expands, and you'll see more and more what's going on. So as usual, let's start with our guided meditation with this in mind, and let's talk about how we can seek to go within, and I'll guide you through that as we go through it. So right now, what I want you to do is find a comfortable position where you're sitting, and I want you to take a few cleansing deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Release all the cares for the day. Focus on your breathing. Breathe in and breathe out. The only thing that matters is the present moment. Be present in this time. Release all thoughts that come to your mind that are not relevant at this moment. Do not pay them any attention. Breathe in and breathe out. Continue to breathe in and out, feeling that energy of all that is flow through you. And in this meditation, we ask ourselves for guidance. We ask the universe for guidance because the universe resides within you. And that we would like clarity or guidance about something we are seeking. So whatever it is for you in this moment, something you're seeking, that one singular item, ask the question. Where does this lead me? What do I need to know? And let it go. And breathe in. And as you're breathing out, you release that question to the universe. And now I want you to visualize that you're walking down a path. You're surrounded by nature. And along that path are cabins in the woods. And as you come to the first one, you approach the door and you knock. And you ask your question. What is it that I need to seek? What is it that needs or yet to be revealed? And continue to go down this path, knocking on the doors as you come to them. The universe may not answer now, because everything happens in divine time. But we can feel the energy of knowing that all will be revealed as we journey down our path. We do not need to know the how. We do not need to know the why. We only seek for whatever it is to be revealed. Because we're inquisitive. We want to know. It is part of the spiritual being having a human experience. Breathe in, breathe out. And we continue to move down the path, knocking on doors, asking the question. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the energy of the universe flowing through. Feel it in the warm sun shining upon your face. Feel it as the gentle breeze whispers through the trees. You can hear the sound of the universe talking. It's indescribable. There are no words for it, but it is ever present. Breathe in, breathe out. That is a beautiful space to exist in. Connecting with all that is. With that still, small voice within. Breathe in. Breathe out. Continuing down our path. Knocking on the doors of the universe. Ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and it shall be found. Knock, and all will be revealed to you. And now I want you to bring yourself back to the present moment. Maybe you received an answer already. Maybe not. It's okay. The answers will come in divine timing, and trusting that they will always be there. All you really need to do is ask. And as we settle into this space, we can slowly begin to bring yourself back to the present moment. We feel ourselves sitting in the place we are in. And we can open our eyes when we're ready. As we begin to open our eyes, we feel peace in the knowing that we have all the answers available to us. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that journey in meditation. And again, answers may have come to you during that few moments that we did this, but I invite you after today's episode to go back and meditate and contemplate further, and I'll offer some guidance at the end here of how to do that. As a scientist, let's move into the heart of our topic here, and by starting with the exploration of inquisitiveness, okay? And our inherent human desire to seek and understand the world, not just scientifically, but also spiritually. You know, as a scientist and a chemist, I have long studied and observed the ways of our universe works through the known laws of physics, spending countless hours exploring the unknown. However, not all that is seen or discovered has a ready explanation. Take a walk in nature, for example. or along the sea, or in the forest, and just observe the natural order of things. See how it ebbs and flows. What do you really see? Maybe you've had that experience where you've taken a walk down a path in the woods and looking around and seeing everything that's around you. It's an immersive experience, to say the least. And we, as a scientist, it's funny because we, again, I talked about in the beginning about everything seemed black and white, but as I got into it, moving through it to achieve my PhD program or get my PhD and do my own research, I discovered that it was very gray, and then it always raised more questions, and it's like infinite, that will continue to go on. And all of the greatest discoveries, and I've studied other scientists and how they've discovered the great discoveries. The media portrays it as quite simple, that, well, so-and-so just discovered this that day and that's how it happened. But the reality is, it never happens going directly in a straight line from point A to point B. It's the journey along the way. And much like it is in nature, when you're walking down a path in the forest, let's say, like we were doing in our meditation, it's about everything that's around you. You take off the blinders. You don't want to be restricted to see that. And that is normally the case for true discovery in science. Okay, it doesn't happen going straight from A to B. And I'll give you an example. My research at the university was about discovering or looking for new cancer drugs from the ocean. And what we did is we collected marine sponges from the ocean and traveled to the South Pacific and tropical places like that, which was exciting. But we'd bring the sponges back to the lab, we'd do an extraction, and there's a lot of things you do as a scientist, and we'd look for new compounds. And we're talking on the molecular level, so using a lot of tools that are available to us today. The technology has advanced quite a bit. But it's a lot of work. It takes months, and sometimes you don't find the answers you're looking for. And I recall that I was exploring and studying data and experiments that I was doing on a particular species or genus species of a sponge, and the chemistry, as I discovered, was already well known for more than 2 decades. And it wasn't very exciting, and it didn't look like anything chemically that would come from that, or any molecules that might come from that search would be any candidates for possible new cancer drugs. As it turns out, in doing some of my experiments and screening it, I discovered there was a small compound, and this took months of work to get to this, and they gave me indication that there was something very different here. I had discovered something that was very unique. And then went through another several months trying to discover what the actual molecular structure of the compound was. And I'll shortcut this, and I won't go through all the technical details. It's quite complicated. It ended up being a big part of my PhD dissertation. But I did discover a new compound. But I hit a wall. Had the molecular fragments of 7 or 8 or 9 fragments of the molecule, and I'd done tons of experiments, NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, and I had this much like stacks of data from different experiments. And myself and my professor, we spent hours trying to figure out the final structure of the molecule. It was really unique, and it definitely wasn't from the sponge. But actually, as it turns out, it was from cyanobacteria that was growing on the surface of the sponge. So I had made a really unique discovery. And it was very and tested in bioassays, and it actually had specificity for C38 colon cancer only. So this was very unique. So we wanted to solve the structure of the molecule. But we hit a wall. And coming up on 4 months, we could not figure out, we'd done all the experiments we could do, we could not figure out how the pieces of the puzzle, think of it as pieces of a puzzle, how they fit together, and it's like, okay, that's the molecule. We came up with a lot of possible structures, but we could never complete it because the data didn't fit the actual structure that we were trying to create. So if you think about it, I forgot how many fragments, 7, 8, or 9 fragments, okay. It took a long time to figure that out. So how did I solve it? Okay, so again, as a scientist, being inquisitive or whatever, I was determined to figure out what the structure was. But it didn't come from sitting there beating my head on the wall and with paper in front of me trying to figure out, drawing all the possibilities, which we had done. So it happened one night in a dream. I dreamt how the pieces came together. And it was so obvious. And the next morning I woke up and immediately went to all the stacks of paper where he'd written down, and I put it all together and I said, oh my gosh, that's it. Why didn't we see this before? It was so obvious. So, and I've understood that from other scientists who've made great discoveries in the past and read their stories about how they did that. It's the same thing. In fact, scientists have had it come to them in a dream. Okay, so where does that come from, right? You had all the knowledge and the intellectual capacity to figure out the answer, but yet it was still eluded you in some way. Well, this is where it has to merge over into the spiritual side of things and have faith in doing that. So let me share something my grandfather had to say about inquisitiveness. He said, quote, as long as a square mile of the Earth's surface remains unexplored, some inquisitive person will be eager to break into it. With penetrating scrutiny, men probe the heavens and plumb the depths of the sea because of an insatiable curiosity to become better acquainted with their surroundings. They set themselves up to uncover the laws of nature and exercise their ingenuity in fitting these laws into novel combinations for the purposes of invention. So we are enabled the more effectively to accommodate ourselves to the world in which we live and to bend natural forces more readily to the requirements of human life. End quote. So my grandfather was talking about human progress, and of course he's right. He didn't see all the progress that's happened today, obviously, but there was a lot happening during his time as well. It was always driven by curiosity, physically, intellectually, and spiritually. Okay? And what I always laugh about and I say is that, well, much of what cannot be explained, or let me rephrase that. What we see cannot be explained through which we know. So like my example of, I knew all the logical ways that could solve the structure of the compound, but I wasn't able to do it. And I laugh about this because, you've seen pirate movies where they bury the treasure and they put an X. Well, X never ever marks the spot. And if you've seen the Indiana Jones movie, it was a play on that sort of concept where that was the Last Crusade movie, I believe, and they were in the cathedral or whatever, and it's only from up on a balcony at a different perspective that he see an X, and he laughs and says, well, I guess X does mark the spot or something like that. But the reality is, in all great discoveries, X never marks the spot because the ways are hidden. So you have to become the observer and foster an inquisitiveness of seek and ye shall find. And then the mysteries of the universe begin to reveal themselves. All that we have discovered is only a mere scratch on the surface of what is available to us. Okay? So that's part of the exploration of inquisitiveness. This is the concept that humanity has always searched for God, or how spiritual inquisitiveness drives our evolution. It drives our evolution in consciousness. Okay? We've seen it throughout history. But now let's transition that into spiritual inquisitiveness and the search for God. And all great discoveries reach a higher dimension or a higher plane because faith comes into play with that. Okay? So my grandfather had to say this about that. And he said, quote, "As with nature, so with the mind, intellectually men are always hunting for something. They build up their systems of thought only to tear them down again as new problems come into view." That's much like what I talked about, the sphere of knowledge, right? Growing and more questions. But their intellectual inquisitiveness will not tolerate the ruins, and they proceed to reconstruct their thought, always hopeful that they may attain to some final conclusions. The history of philosophy is the story of relentless search of the human mind for ultimate values. All progress is dependent upon man's desire to find something. Civilization itself develops by reason of human inquisitiveness. Right? So, it's an ongoing process, and it is moving or transitioning ourselves to a place of growing in grace and spiritual curiosity. It's an ongoing process. And, the spiritual curiosity from the scripture, ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find. This makes the connection of having faith in whatever it is that you seek or what you choose to discover. And again, if you're on a spiritual path, you're watching this, you're listening to this, you've been asking the questions yourself, but you don't know the answers maybe. So you have to approach the journey with both faith and an open heart, constantly exploring and constantly evolving. Again, this is a lifelong journey. And so it goes, and it has been going on throughout all time in history. The natural laws have been in existence since the beginning of the universe, long before us. They always existed. So think about this. The materials and laws to create computers existed when the knights were making their first crusade to the Holy Land in 1095 AD. But how did they not see how to create them? Yeah, it's fascinating a concept to ponder. Why didn't they? Well, I'll leave it to you to contemplate. But what's intuitively obvious, though, is that the ever-expanding consciousness of the mind continues to evolve and will do so till the end of time itself, if time even ends. So there will always be this. The difference is there's an evolution of consciousness, of seek and you shall find. Many seekers have crossed decades of time, thousands of years, have asked the questions, have come to that place on the path where they're this spiritual being having a human experience and ask the questions. It's part of the experience of being human. So, what about our search for the answers of what it is that we're seeking? Again, this is the spiritual equivalence. This is where we transition to a place of having faith. Now, I knew for sure some way or another I was going to solve the structure of the compound. But I didn't know how. And again, you don't have to know the how. But I had a belief, I had faith that I would find the answer. And then it's when you stop making it so hard to look for the answer that it becomes revealed to you. Okay? It's when you stop. And that's the beauty of it, because I wasn't even physically sitting there trying to do it on paper, figure it out. It came to me in a dream. And it was so obvious then. So sometimes we try so hard that we block that energetic connection with the divine, that still small voice within that is wanting to reveal the answers to our questions. But for us to see what that is, we have to have faith, and we have to have an open heart, and we have to let go, really, of control of trying to do that. So, which comes to the next part of our discussion, which is embracing the mystery, that faith and divine timing and how important they are. We don't have to know the how, which means we don't have to know the timing. So it could have taken 6 months, 8 months, could have taken a year, it could have taken years actually to figure out what the answer was. We don't have a time frame. We can't put a time frame and expect that we're going to do this and have this answer by this time. It doesn't work that way. So this embracing the mystery is really key. And my grandfather had to say this along this topic, or this concept anyway. He said, quote, "But this is not all of it. Along with all our other searchings, human history has always been marked with man's persistent search after God. For he is spiritually inquisitive, as well as intellectually and physically. The search for God is an inherited human instinct. No one may ever dare to consider our knowledge of Him to be a finished accomplishment. To do so would be to settle into a state of spiritual decay. We grow in grace," end quote. And there it is. We grow in grace. The truth and promise of ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you, was gifted us just by our very existence. This state of consciousness leads us to all understanding and will constantly expand our awareness so long as we embrace the mystery of it all. So have faith. When we need to know, the answers will be revealed. Until then, we move down our spiritual path, always inquisitive, always exploring, and always seeking. What I'd like you to do is to consider your own path. What spiritual mysteries are you seeking to uncover? And I want to stress the importance of trusting in divine timing. The moment we put a time frame around something, and then we move to this place of setting expectations, and I talked about this in an earlier episode, we restrict the energetic flow of the universe and the answers being revealed to us. It may not ever be revealed if we have that sort of expectation. So it's really important to let go of that control, to really trust in the process. Trust that all will be revealed to you in the right time. There's so many examples in my life where I let go of trying to find the answers to whatever. In fact, I even forget about I asked the question. And then suddenly it's revealed. And I said, oh yeah, I did ask about that. And it always comes in the perfect time. Doesn't it always seem that way when something is really an important discovery or a great discovery happens in a certain time? It always gets revealed right at the perfect moment, whenever you need it or whatever. And that goes back to embracing the mystery of it. Embrace the joy of the mystery. It's kind of cool when you think about it. It's just like walking down the path in nature and listening to the birds and feeling the breeze and the sun on your face. And moving through that and feeling the energy. If you just breathe it in, you can feel the energy of that. It's a beautiful place to be. So let me close with a few key takeaways here, okay? And the point of our discussion today. So the first is the human instinct to seek both scientifically and spiritually. Okay, so it's not just scientific process or an intellectual process, but it's also a spiritual process. All great discoveries, all answers to the questions that we wish to seek and know require both. And it requires embracing that mystery. That's the second point. It's important to embrace the mystery and have faith. And then finally, the practice of patience and curiosity in the spiritual journey. So, practicing patience, being curious, is a critical part of your spiritual journey. That led me to the whole where spirit meets science, because I was constantly asking questions. I was very curious, very inquisitive, and I had so many different spiritual experiences, experiential in their nature, where there was no other explanation to that except that I was connecting with the divine and all that is, and the answers of the universe. And that happens in meditation. This is why it's important to develop this spiritual practice of meditation. The other thing to develop is affirmation. So in this context, a perfect affirmation for this is, I am that, the seeker of divine truth. You are a seeker of divine truth. Write it down and reflect on that throughout the day today. And contemplate that in your meditation. Okay? And continue to make your inquiries and remain open to the wisdom that the universe offers in divine time. So go forth, seeking clarity, insight, and spiritual growth as you continue to journey down your path. And remember, the path is one of discovery, and everything that you seek will be revealed in due time. That's for sure. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the topic today. If you did, please send me a message. You can go to my website at williamdavidclark.com. You can send me a message through the website. Subscribe to the newsletter. Blog posts, I haven't done that many blog posts recently, but I will be doing some more of those, of some of my writings. Certainly a number of episodes are available to you on the website and the YouTube channel. And then if you need to drive while you're doing this, don't watch a video while you're driving. You can listen to it on Spotify and other platforms, just the audio portion. But again, thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure, and I wish you all success in the journey, and I know that you will find the answers to your questions. With love and gratitude, I'm Dr. Bill.